Hello again, welcome back to Asgaard, and welcome back to ATM Spellbound. So it's been a little bit of time since the last episode. As I had mentioned, I was planning on decorating out this area, so I've started on it. It's maybe not entirely done, I'm still kind of doing some small adjustments, but I did go ahead and I pushed this border back like I said I would, so we have a little bit more space coming into this room. And I went ahead and set up our totem poles. You can see, if I stand right in here, I've actually got Aura of Warding 2 and Aura of Celerity 2. So we do kind of get a speed boost, and we have some added defense. I think it's kind of on par with like a resistance 2. And then we also have regeneration. The range on these, it's not super big, but it is quite nice. The Celerity one, I could see maybe spacing that around our base to some degree. Kind of like totems with totemic. And then the warding would be especially nice for like blood magic. Also kind of nice just to have because, as I mentioned, at least at present, our healing isn't all that fast. Though hopefully today we're going to rectify that. I did decide that I needed crimson for this build, and so I went off basically in the nether just to find a crimson forest. I found one, but it's not an ideal one, and I'll take you over there and show you why that is here shortly. But I've got a couple additional spirit altars with hoppers. So I have these two basically set up for automation, and this one over here set up for automation, basically just for crafting stone. I don't have the item holders on these. They are literally just for basically crafting stone and similar things. We do have a little flower box there. If we step through to our main room, it's still laid out pretty much identical to the way that it was. I did add a couple spirit altars here mainly for decoration, because I actually like these as like a table, and they're fairly cheap to build. Also, I did get a bunch more spirits between episodes, just killing mobs with our scythe. And I did go ahead and just make another set of the steel armor, just as decoration. And probably going to make another set of the soul stained for this one over here. And then beyond that, I mean, it's all pretty much identical to the way that we had things set up. We have a little stool here and a little table. This is actually the Encyclopedia Arcana because it's fairly cheap to craft. It's like a book and a mushroom or something random like that. But yeah, it's all pretty much laid out the same. I just went through and decorated it. These are soul chandeliers and the nifty runewood doors here. So I've still got to decorate the outside, of course. Also, I did go ahead. I was wanting to actually start working on it, like at least figure out where I'm going to put a kitchen. I haven't done that yet, but we are going to be adding a kitchen onto this before long. But I did go ahead and start setting up a library using the crimson bookshelves. I think they kind of complement the purple color fairly well. Decided to go with that because even though we have like the dusk bookshelves, we don't have bookshelves from Builders, Crafts, and Additions that fit that color, and I think the crimson kind of works out. And so I've tried to begin using some of the crimson colors throughout our base. And I've got these kind of laid out, so this is kind of apotheosis stuff. This is our leftover tattered tomes. I'm just keeping them just for the sake of it. And I did change this over to the dusk bookshelves instead of the mahogany. The mahogany was kind of that pinkish color. We didn't want that. Over here we have ancient tomes, and then over here we have enchanted books. I did go ahead and actually enchanted one of the apotheosis. We had a pick tome, and I did go ahead and enchant that. Of course, those are cheap to make, but it's like blaze rods, and I don't have a lot of them at the moment. But we did end up with Efficiency 5, Soulbound, and Fortune 3, which is actually pretty huge for a pickaxe. Definitely better than what we ended up here with Efficiency 5, Fire Aspect 2, and Smite 5. But pretty good enchantments there. I have begun noticing that I really want Silk Touch. So that is something that I'm going to be enchanting for before too long. Now, if we pop down, I did spend just a little bit of time in the underground. You can see I've actually got crimson berries. These are fairly common in the nether. And spent a little bit of time collecting plants kind of between episodes. But you can see I have started kind of just populating this with like lush growth. It's not done by far. And of course all this lunar stone on the ground, a lot of this is going to get ripped up in place of other blocks. But you can see I do have some coarse lunar dirt, and I have some regular, so that if we decide to go with standard lunar grass. It will spread onto some of these, but not all of them. By the way, the baneful mushrooms and the crimson berries are dangerous. This will give you poison too, and these will deal damage to you. So, as per usual, I don't shy away from dangerous plants in like plant areas, so we do have a few dangerous ones that we don't want to touch, ideally. It's not really a big deal. The poison 2 doesn't last all that long. But you can see a bit of the quark crystals up in here. You can see some leaves, some various different vines. Now, unfortunately, I have not managed to come across the lunar vines as of yet. I've been looking for them, but I haven't come across them. But I do have dusk vines, and then some of the weeping vines from the nether. Some shroom lights for light. And overall, just a bunch of kind of going for really kind of vibrant colors, neon colors, and lots of plant variety. So we'll continue adding to this as time goes on. Right now, you can see a lot of the blue skies plants and a little bit of the nether plants in here because I like the red that they kind of bring to the table. Now, if we pop up, yeah, that's pretty much everything down here. Let's pop up. One thing I do want to show you is if we take our waystone to the Crimson Forest, this Crimson Forest is not a normal Crimson Forest. This is a Blackstone Crimson Forest, which is unfortunate and is important because of the fact... There we go. By the way, Shadow Stalker... Shadow Stalker makes traveling the nether substantially easier. Man, this guy's got a lot of health. Go. By the way, this is a great way to... I did this earlier. This is a great way to farm up spirits. So, because we get a big variety of spirits off of these guys. Yeah, you can see right here, Sacred, we get Wicked, we get Earthen, we get Infernal. You get a huge swath of, you get half the spirits here. And you can pretty much just hide back in that little cave section there. But the Shadow Stalker, Shadow Step, it is great for traversing the nether because nothing really notices you. Unless you want it to notice you, nothing really pays you much mind. So you can pretty much just run around. But the Blackstone here, you cannot plant the Crimson Fungus onto it. I mean, you can place it down, but, you can't grow it with bone meal. So we're going to have to get actual Nylium. So right now I've just been ripping up this forest. But luckily it is decent size here. So we have a bit to work with. Oh, and while we're here, I was wanting to grab these. And I was meaning to grab them as I was going through the nether. Kind of traveling through the nether. And since we're here, and since I'm precariously over lava at the moment, I think... I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me actually get our magnet ring. And can I... Yeah, I can just break these and I can get the Wailing Bell Blossoms. They're actually really common. They're going to be all around the Wailing Garth biomes. And I've been coming across them, but... they're always, almost always floating over these really precarious places, and I just hadn't gotten around to it, but... Yeah, so we will probably be decorating with quite a bit of those, I imagine. But yeah, we take, barely any damage, and the fact that stuff doesn't really notice us. The pigmen will, because they get aggression, so if you attack one, then you're going to have to deal with a bunch, but they are extremely easy with the scythe, and we are going to be looking, before too long, at making a better scythe, even, which is more damage output, because I'm loving this kind of, I don't know, Grim Reaper, magical Grim Reaper thing that we've got going on. But I do want to start getting into spells, too, because I want to start slinging some spells, because it just makes sense. But today, what we are going to be doing is we're going to start getting into a little bit of agriculture, specifically kind of revolving around food. I've been all right now that I have crescent fruit and I have crimson berries, and I've been kind of around the base, but as soon as I go off, this stuff goes really, really fast. So I do want to kind of move away from this. And to do that, of course, we are going to go with Farmer's Delight. There's a few outlier foods, from different magic mods and stuff that we'll probably get into, but this is going to be the bulk of probably our sustenance, I imagine. And I was looking through here, and I think just because it's seasonal, and I love pumpkin in the fall, I think we're going to shoot for stuffed pumpkin, right out the gate. It is a little bit involved to craft. We are going to have to get sweet berries, which I don't think I have. I did break a bunch of grass between episodes. And for some reason, I ended up with humanoid flesh inside of... Oh yeah, those don't stack. I ended up with humanoid flesh in here for some reason. I did break a bunch of grass, just vein mined it, just so we had a good amount of seeds here. But I know we're going to want pumpkin. I know we are going to want potatoes. Yeah. Potatoes. We're also going to want some mushrooms, which we'll have to get into colony farming for that, which is pretty straightforward. Then we're going to want tomatoes, and for this right here, we can actually use pretty much any kind of vegetable, so I think might go with tomatoes, or might spice it up into like aubergine, maybe, or carrots. I don't know, we'll probably do a different vegetable just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then we are going to need rice. Now, I don't know, I do have rice, perfect. And then as far as our other vegetable, I might just plant like a general field, but I am definitely thinking I want wheat, I want to plant sugarcane today. I would not mind planting bamboo today. But maybe for our other vegetable, let's just go with carrots, because it's vanilla stuff I tend to like to gravitate to if we can. And that's because of the fact that it's going to be used in a lot of other stuff as well. So, also, before we get going, we might want to start getting into composting. Just because that's a good way for us to get some pretty easy growth acceleration. Though, now that we do have malum kind of expanded upon, we can actually set up growth totems down there, and that's going to help out quite a bit, I think. But we could go with some organic compost, because this is going to be straw, rotten flesh, bone meal, and dirt. Yeah, let's do some of that, actually. Strangely, I think the thing I'm going to be lacking the most on is dirt. Now, we're also going to need a knife for this. But luckily, these things are super cheap. We're going to go straight on with a diamond knife, so... Wrong thing. I got a little bit ahead of myself there. Let me just shift click it in to make sure we get the right thing. There is this too, so we can switch. You know, if we wanted to instead make a chisel, you can kind of tab between these recipes, but we want the diamond knife, so we're going to take that, and we're going to have to gather ourselves some straw, which is super easy to do, and I imagine we should be able to do it just really, really quickly with vein mine. So, yes, and you can see we got 12 straw, and we got a ton of seeds. Seed drops in this pack are so broken. You get so many seeds. But what I'm really after at the moment is specifically just... Oh, it has messed up all my organization. I'm specifically after just the straw at the moment, so we'll go ahead and make sure we've got a bit of that. And let's go ahead and get ourselves some... Let's see, is it... Oh, it's the same, but we'd have to use tree bark. Okay. I'd rather just go with this other method. It uses more bone meal, but we actually have a lot of bones. And I think we could put these in the grindstone and get a little, or the meal, and get, that's actually reasonable. I mean, you're looking at like doubling, chance to double. So yeah, let's actually run these through the meal. I got a beetle. must suck not to be able to see who's attacking you. It's funny because there's certain mobs. I've noticed that, like, the pillagers, if you get right up kind of close to them, about 5 blocks away, they will notice you. And I think that's because they're a ranged mob, so they have a farther aggro range. But stuff that's melee-based, they will not notice you. They will not notice you unless you are right up on them. I mean, I think you have to be standing, like, pretty much in the same block space as them in order to get noticed. Okay, yeah, we're getting a lot of bone meal here. And that white dye will come in handy later, I'm sure, so. But let's go ahead and we'll get into some organic composting. I am extremely low on dirt. I'll get some more here in just a moment. But this stuff, what we can do is we can lay it out, and it has various different, like, modifiers. So, for example, I think we can look here, yeah. You can see organic compost. Oh, it's actually what you need for the zombie. But I'm not that concerned about the time. I'm just going to let it sit and let it compost for a bit. And then we should have some rich soil to use here shortly. I'm going to go ahead and rip up some dirt, maybe down here. It's probably going to take a little bit since I'm not really making use of the activator system that much. And once it's done, it is going to make rich soil, which we can turn into farmland if we want. And anything that's planted on the rich soil or the rich farmland is going to occasionally get speed boosts. to its growth ticks. And then in addition, it can't be trampled. So pretty nice. It does still need to be hydrated though, so to get those effects. So well, I think it still keeps the trample, the anti-trample, but I think it does need to be hydrated to get the random growth ticks. So just a heads up there. All right, so now at this point, let me go ahead, grab a bit of these. And, oh, and by the way, pumpkins can't grow on it. They can't cover it up, you know. So that's another nice feature about it, because we can use that for a pumpkin farm, which is actually one of the things that I would like to use that for. And we'll start getting this stuff set up. And basically we're going to be setting up one farm at a time, kind of getting this all situated for us. And we're not going to be going with like super clean farms, of course, because we're kind of going with this more like wild cave sections. So we'll be doing a little bit more sort of wild farms, and probably not all in the same place either, because I'm planning a path to kind of run and curve up and then around here. So in theory it would need to be curving around something. So I think we're going to cut out this area, 4 blocks. That's actually perfect for us. So what we'll do, we'll actually pull this out and go ahead and set ourselves up a little infinite water source back here. And then what we'll do is we'll put in our soil into here. And I think, just because I know otherwise I'm going to trample it, I might actually go with a rich soil here for our tomatoes. Let me actually pop back up. I'm going to go ahead and make up more, because the thing I ran out of was rotten flesh, and I'm sure I've got more of that in here. A bit more. I thought I would have had more. There we go. We have a nice, decent sized pile of compost. It's almost gonna be almost a stack of our soil. And also, let's go ahead and put in some rune wood, and then some rune wood planks, and then it's going to be 4 earthen and 2 arcane. So we'll go ahead and get these. Yeah, we'll do it here. I don't actually have an item hopper in here anymore, or a vacuum hopper. That's okay. These don't actually take that long to run. But that way we can get some totem bases. I will probably have to go out and get some more rune wood, but that's fine. And then the rite of growth is sacred spirits and arcane spirits. And you can see our compost is starting to kind of change colors. It's getting basically growth ticks, similar to how a plant does whenever you grow that. Oh, I didn't think about this. It doesn't really matter if it changes the grass texture, because all this is going to get removed and pulled up and stuff anyways. So, but we get the sun-kissed grass. But once again, if you do want to grow those at full speed, just basically if you're going to be growing mushrooms, yeah, there's rich soil. So it doesn't take that long. But if you're going to be growing mushroom colonies, those are perfect places to they're perfect places to grow, to do your composting, because it's actually the exact same requirements, just about because you would have mushrooms nearby, you would have water nearby, and it would be a dark area. So okay, but right down here we're going to go ahead and just set in yeah, actually probably have it be setting right here. No, because I don't like the way it overlaps off of the platform. Can I do that and still get the light effects? Because it doesn't look like with F7. Yeah, it looks like it sees that as a transparent block, so that's actually perfect. We'll put it right there. A little bit of overlap there, but once we put the farm in, I think that'll be good. We're going to go up 3, and it's going to be arcane, sacred, sacred. Right-click the bottom of that, and there we go. We now have an active ritual of growth, the rite of growth, on this. So it's going to speed up the crops nearby. And I don't remember the distance, but it's about the same as what the other ones give us as far as buffs. It may not hit this block here, but I think it will. That's only 5 blocks out. I think it will, but if not, that's fine. Not a big deal. And then, of course, I've got to work on these passages, but we'll go ahead and come down to the next big open cave section that we've got for our next plants, I think, which is this area. So we're going to end up having these kind of like almost wild cave sections that have been turned into sort of farmland, but it's more intended to kind of feel like kind of wild growth. And then maybe like herbalists or whatever would come down and harvest the crops from here instead of having like a dedicated crop area, I think, within this. We'll have some farm animals and stuff up above, probably, but I think we're going to have this type stuff down here. I think it's going to end up looking quite nice. So, actually, I've got a plan for down here. What we're going to do is we're going to pull up this stuff, but I think we're going to turn this area into a big waterfall. And that's where we're going to grow our sugarcane and our rice. And the rice probably won't get rich soil right now, but it's going to be a big space that we're actually growing in. So I think it'll be fine. This whole structure is going to have to get removed. I might as well. And I think this area we're going to turn into a little potato farm. Probably potatoes and carrots, I think. Maybe in this little section. May expand this out just a little bit more to like there. And like that. And then probably put water underneath this. I think that's actually going to cover, if we put water here, that's going to cover the entire farmland. Yeah, so that's good. Because we do want this to be hydrated. And that's going to cover everything except for pumpkins and bamboo. And mushrooms, which we'll get into in just a moment. See how our compost is going, so maybe we can start placing some of this out. Yeah, we've got a bit of rich soil there. Bit there. Now leaving it, it would cause the rest of this to compost just a little bit faster, but that's fine. We got, we have 8 right now, so. This one, we're going to go ahead and lay this field out just so I can get that water to quit flowing. Go ahead and do that. And you can see that this cannot be trampled, which is great. And we're going to be getting random growth ticks from our totem and from our farmland. So it should result in pretty decent growth speeds, I think. So there we go. That's filled out. We don't need a really big farm, I don't feel like. I feel like once this gets going and we have the rest of this filled out, we'll have plenty of tomatoes. Plus the food that we're going to be making goes pretty far. And we're only using it for the tomato soup portion and not for the other vegetable as well. So, alright, now down here, let's go ahead. I think we're just going to fill pretty much most of this out with dirt. And something I'm not for sure about, I wonder if these dripstones can be waterlogged. Because that is something that I've never really tried. Ah, they can. They can. You just have to place the block. Perfect. So then we kind of have this fountain, or this waterfall that kind of runs off as well. And then our rice, this has to be this rice. You'll actually notice that if you take a look at Farmer's Delight, you're going to notice this rice panicle. This is what you're going to get from harvesting. But what you actually need is this, of course, to plant it. And we could just click that in like that. We'll probably add some lighting to this, some better lighting. And we will continue to expand this. Might set up a totem kind of on the edge here. But we're actually... I just realized these have grown again. Like, I literally just popped up and broke some dirt. We're kind of going with, like, really fast growth with the soil and the totems. But not huge farm spaces in this case. A lot of times I do bigger farms. But on here, I want kind of these just, like, scattered around within the cave. So we're kind of moving between these. And then we'll kind of decorate all this so it's really, really vibrant once everything's all done. And I think it's going to make a fun change of pace. Because when I started this series, you know, I was like, you know, what am I going to do for kind of a magic-y themed farm? You know, because farms, there's only, like, really so much you can do with them. You know, you're somewhat limited in design in that aspect because it's going to be plants and it's going to be soil and you know, I didn't really want to go with them like indoors, but then I was like, you know what, we're going to do a big cave area that's just plants growing. Okay, so we are going to pretty much just do rows. I mean, they're not going to be evened out, of course, because this is kind of random shaped. You can see it proccing those growth ticks. Every time this sparkles, it's triggered something. So you can see this one, it's already at 71%. Grows pretty fast. And really, we could set up another totem if we wanted to and have more effect, but I don't know if we really need it. If we find that the stuff isn't fast enough, we'll just set up more totems, you know, or go with another mod's growth system. And you can see this rice is now fully grown, so we can just right-click that, and we're going to get our first rice panicle, which we then have to process that, which we'll get into. Well, we can process it here, but apparently this works. Is that, I don't remember that being default. Maybe it is. And on the plus side, we're going to have all these, like, totems kind of glowing throughout our caves, even though they're, like, covered in hearts and stars. But I do wish maybe they didn't have the hearts and stars, but generally I think it would be fine. It just doesn't match as much for this build, but I think for most situations when it's above ground and in, like, a happy farm, it would probably be alright. So, alright, now something that I would like to do really quick. I don't recall if sugarcane can grow on the crystal sand. So I think I'd like to set out really quick and go get some crystal sand just so that we can test it and see. Because if sugarcane can grow on that, I think I'd rather have crystal sand than normal vanilla sand. I mean, of course, there is dirt and stuff, but I'd rather go with sand. Also, we'll be able to use some lily pads maybe on that water, and some of these as well. These glimmer reeds. So I might take these. By the way, it is worth noting that Blue Skies is very kind with their plants, and you don't really need shears to harvest these, so you can kind of just break them with your bare hands and get the different plant drops. So it does make things a little bit easier. Actually, what about lunar mud? That might even be better. But we can't grow it on there. We can grow it on lunar grass. Can't grow it on lunar coarse dirt. That would be awesome if you could do it on the mud. I might actually sprinkle in just a little bit of lunar mud into our rice field. We can grow sugarcane on crystal sand. Okay, that's perfect. Alright, let's try out the lunar mud real quick, because I am really curious about that. Nah, we can't. We cannot. So we might sprinkle some in just for decoration, but since we cannot grow rice on it, we won't use it quite as much. Now, you can use rich soil here. In long term, we probably will change over to rich soil, and that's going to give us a really dark soil, which I think will look a whole lot better. But at the moment, that's kind of an expense that I don't want to have to do right now, because that's a bit more rich soil for us. So, oh, and look how spiffy sugarcane looks. I actually really like that. And I think bamboo is probably just going to be spread out, because of course bamboo, you don't need a big field of this to have a bunch of bamboo. At least till maybe we automate it or something like that in the future. But I kind of want to today go for form over function farms, so that we do have, you know, these are going to be manual farms. They're not going to be something where you just harvest a ton of it super fast. But I think it's also sufficient. I don't think that we need like super farms. But then we'll just have our bamboo just kind of, you know, out in these areas, kind of mixing up some plants into this. I swear I turn around and it's like, oh, you can harvest tomatoes again. There you go. And then right now these areas kind of stick out, but I think once we bring in the other plants and kind of make this area real lush, I think it's going to look quite nice, to be honest. And I think pumpkins, we're going to kind of spread these out just a little bit. I wonder if they're going to be able to grow over. May have to end up changing this to dirt. We'll see. There we go. And we'll let those pumpkins grow for a little bit and see if they take. Okay, and then we have to get the mushrooms. We also have to go get sweet berries. Okay, and as for our mushrooms, I think we're going to grow them back here in like a little cave area. And like back in this space, I think. And what we're going to do is basically to grow our mushrooms. We're going to start with brown, then we'll add red a little bit later. Honestly, probably have this be just a brown mushroom cave, and then have a separate one as red. Brown's going to be the one that we use the most, but we will be using some as decoration. But we need to make sure we have some rich soil. And for now, I'm going to put this here just to block up the water. And we'll just have that water kind of run down like so. Let me go ahead and fill up my buckets for now. And then we can just basically take our brown mushrooms and just put these in. It has to be a light level, what, of 12 or below, I think. That's, yeah, there we go. You can see this one has just grown. But I think it's light level 12 or below, which, you know, in vanilla, it just allows the mushroom to be placed on any block. I think this one might be too bright at the moment. No, that's 11, so that's good. But this is going to steadily grow, and if we take a look at the stuffed pumpkin, we're going to need a brown mushroom colony, which is a fully grown brown mushroom. And I guess for right now, we can add some red ones in there and let those grow. Oh, there we go. Became a red mushroom. And we'll just kind of let these start growing. It's definitely an easier way to farm mushrooms, and we'll talk about, once they've grown a little bit, we'll talk about how to go about harvesting those. Now at this point we do need to head out and we need to go find sweet berries. Hey there, buddy. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Okay. It's just too easy now. Another Enderman. You'll notice even Endermen don't notice us for a bit. And they actually don't even do that much damage to us anymore. It's amazing. Like, he actually got himself a hit in, but it was all for naught. It only did like 1.5 hearts of damage. It's incredible. And once we get our good food this episode, we will be unstoppable at that point. Hopefully this isn't boring for you guys. I wanted to basically just spend an episode on camera since we're kind of honing in on Farmer's Delight. Spend an episode and just kind of go through this a little bit on camera. You know, normally we don't cover a whole lot of farming because normally we're just setting up fields. But between Farmer's Delight and kind of the way that we're setting up fields is a little bit different in this pack. Now, sweet berries. By chance, is there a way to just get these like real easy without needing to go into Botania? No, not really. So we're gonna have to go out and get some. But I will say I'm having a lot of fun with this kind of the setup that we're going for the farms. I like these kind of setups because it gives me the opportunity to really go out and just harvest a bunch of plants on here, which I always enjoy. Just collect all the plants that you can find. And I tend to enjoy the agricultural side of Minecraft a lot. So, of course, if you've been on the channel for very long, you know that's actually a big part of my life outside of the channel is foraging and gardening and things like that. So I always enjoy getting into the agriculture on here a bit too. So, oh, we do actually have a village here, and this one could potentially have sourceberry because it's kind of one of the mountain style villages. And generally those will have sweet berries. I keep saying source berries, but I mean sweet berries. A lot of times they'll have them in like planter boxes and stuff. Oh, there's a small farm over here, but I think it's all just pumpkins. Ah, here we go. Sweet berries. Perfect. And looks like we do have... Haha. Let's rename this to Zelkova Village. And then we'll just warp on home. And that gave our compost a little bit of time. It's going to be extremely slow for this to compost, but it's not really a big deal. I'm just going to let it run. I've got enough of everything that we need to get started. So, well, I don't know about these pumpkins because you'll notice they're not doing anything. I think they really have to have dirt nearby, dirt or farmland or a couple other blocks, I think. But I think we are going to have some dirt just for them to place their pumpkins onto, and that's fine. Honestly, we might be able to use lunar dirt, and if so, we might end up changing over to that. That should be good. Let's check up on our mushrooms real quick. These are actually doing fairly well at the moment. I am going to convert over... We're going to convert this over to rich soil. And then we can take these shears at this point. And for example, this one, we're just going to right click it. And you can see it cuts off some of that brown mushroom. Because we're actually going to need a pretty decent little field of these brown mushrooms to get everything going to where it needs to be, where we have a lot of these coming in, because they do take some time. Now, I don't know if the totem would work on these, because it might. I'm going to set one up and we'll just see what happens. Because if it does end up working, that would actually be very beneficial for us. There we go. That is now active. Let's go ahead and clip these off. Probably end up moving these fairly soon. And that was a fully grown colony, by the way. But we're going to go ahead and just take the mushrooms for now, just to get more growing. Also, if you just break these, you'll notice that we get the 2. So if you plan on breaking the entire crop, you don't have to use shears, but shears are going to leave at least 2, which will be like this. Basically a formed farmer's delight block. Actually, yeah, it seems like... I think I just saw a glint there. Yeah, it's adding extra growth ticks. Oh, that's awesome. That's actually going to be extremely nice. Okay, and we've got pumpkins. Pumpkins coming in. I guess our very first sweet berry we're going to put in right here, I think. Just because we can. And that way it's going to get those extra growth ticks. Well, it's... The soil isn't, because it's not hydrated. Because I think even as a soil block it still has to be hydrated. Maybe not. But it's still getting the totem pole boost. So, yeah. I'll tell you what, actually. We'll just do that. Do I have any... Yeah, I got some bones. Just so I can get a little bit of a stockpile of those source berries. We'll add some more of those and kind of scatter them around the room with the rest of the plants. So at this point, what we are going to do, we can make our rice just like that. So we actually don't need the cutting board at the moment. Normally you would use a knife and cutting board. I don't remember that being a recipe before, but it seems to be now. And then we've got the carrots. I do need to get the potatoes baking, and we don't have a smoker set up, so I'm actually just going to cook these in the normal furnaces, I think. Oh yeah, I forgot that steak had been here the entire time when I was like hungry. That'll be fine. Now if we take a look at the stuffed pumpkin, this requires cooking on a cooking pot. But beyond that, it's all pretty straightforward. And you can see that we do need a pumpkin as basically the kind of the reagent item, which is going to serve as the bowl for this. So to get our cooking pot, we are going to need bricks, wooden shovel. Okay, this is all pretty easy. And I think as for our heat source, I think we're just going to go with a campfire for now. Probably keep some of them around, to be honest, because they look quite nice. But I don't actually have the kitchen set up yet. I haven't built it yet. I meant to, but I don't have it set up yet. So we're going to cook in here for the time being. So we'll go campfire, and we're going to put the stove on top. And you can see it's starting to bubble there, which does mean that it's working. Now, in order to get our stuffed pumpkin, we are going to need tomato sauce. And that's going to be 2 tomatoes with a bowl. And so at this point, we're going to go ahead and just make ourselves a bunch of bowls, because we're going to end up needing these. But if we throw that into there, it's going to start cooking. And it's going to make us that tomato sauce there. Now this can store up, like if we don't have enough bowls in there, it can store up the tomato sauce. So for example, if I take this out, you can see it makes it, but we need a bowl. So it's served on a bowl. So we're just going to throw that back in there. And then that's going to put it onto the bowl there. So we'll let that process. Probably once we get our kitchen done, we're probably going to have quite a few cooking pots, because as you can see, it can take a little bit. But it doesn't take any fuel or anything like that. You can just throw your ingredients in there. So honestly, if you have a kitchen, like we're going to have a grand kitchen and grand dining room within this area, and we'll probably have just a ton of cooking pots, because I plan on doing a bit with Farmer's Delight. if nothing else, because it's going to give us a lot of hearts by the time we eat everything from it. So we definitely want to get into it and do a bit with it for sure. Okay, so let's pop down. Well, actually, before we do that, no use holding on to this because we're not using this for anything but tomato soup. So let's do that. And there we go. We got our tomato sauce. Tomato sauce, not tomato soup. I'm actually going to eat one of these real quick. Also worth noting, a lot of the stuff from Farmer's Delight will not stack. I think tomato sauce does because it's a light meal. But once we start getting into, like, say, the stuffed pumpkin, I think it caps out at like 16 that we can carry on us. But they are extremely saturating meals. You can see right here quite a bit that it restores. So it's not something that we would need a whole bunch of, and we can always stuff some in our backpack to carry with us. Those three look like fully grown. That one too. So let's go ahead and just shear that off, and you can see we got a brown mushroom colony. So what we're going to do, because of course you do basically take the block whenever you do this, so the way that you sustain it is just clip a couple of these other ones that aren't fully grown at the moment, and then just replant, and that way it'll continue growing on. So of course having a big field of this would be quite nice, and that's left click with the shears, by the way. If you right click, of course, as mentioned before, you are going to get just the brown mushrooms. So if you want the colony for the stuffed pumpkin, you will need to actually break the block. So is this done making... We're still making tomato sauce at the moment. I'm going to let it run out just so we have a bunch of this stuff made up. And our potatoes. So yeah, really we're going to be just brown mushroom colonying it up. So I was trying to actually cook my rice on me. Actually, I might let it cook one thing of rice, because I think it makes like rice, cooked rice, steamed rice. Yeah. And let's grab that just so that we can eat it. Warm and cozy. Soups and stews are great for warding off cold and sickness. Yes, yes they are. But then we can go ahead and toss in all this stuff. And of course this is going to be served on a pumpkin. You'll notice that it takes a little bit longer to cook, but we can put our pumpkin, and these you can only have one in here at a time. They do not stack, so just a heads up. But we can use something to pull the stuffed pumpkin out whenever it's finished. But it is something that you do kind of have to manage. However, once we get these finished, what we do is we just place them down. And this is throwing out the bowls from the tomato sauce as it gets finished up. So there we go. We got our first 4 stuffed pumpkins. And we have everything in here except for the mushroom colonies, which they won't take very long. Now what we can do is we can just right click this with a bowl, and it kind of works a lot like a pumpkin, where we get to kind of break these down and get meals out of them, 4 meals per feast. And really at this point, because whenever we go out exploring, we'll probably have all this filled up with colonies by the time we get back. So at that point, we pretty much never have to worry about food, because it's a quick harvest. And I mean, this thing is super simple. We don't even have to have animals to have this food going, which is actually pretty powerful. You know, a lot of high tier foods normally require animals of some sort. This comes down to literally just farming. Plus it's kind of nice because it's seasonal, and it's a seasonal food. We'll probably move on to honey glazed ham though for Christmas, I think, just to kind of celebrate that once we get a little bit closer to Christmas. There we go. And just to say, I believe these only stack to 16, right? Yeah, just to 16, but we can have multiple stacks and just store them in our bag. You know, 16 bits of stuffed pumpkin, it's actually going to last a long time. So, and I could finally say goodbye to crescent fruit. Now, of course, there is some other stuff we're going to be using. The pantries, whenever I go to set up the kitchen, we are going to be setting up some pantries and probably decorating with a lot of this stuff. And the skillet, the cutting board, the stove, that sort of stuff. I'm sure we'll cover a little bit on camera later, but they're really straightforward to use. So, I thought we were actually going to be using the cutting board today for the rice, but apparently it's not required for that, because you can just do it in your crafting grid. But a lot of this other stuff, like slices of cake, for example, a lot of that other stuff, we do have to use it for crafting those things. So, and honestly, our carrots and potatoes are growing so fast at this point. I'm actually thinking about running out wheat in this field and just kind of having this much be wheat, because I just, in all honesty, I just don't need, because they grow so fast. I just don't think I'm going to need that much of this stuff. So what I might do is spread these out just a little bit more. Maybe just say, maybe just not even worry about it. Maybe just do wheat on this end and then carrots and potatoes alternating. I mean, there's a little bit of a speed increase with rows, but I really don't think it's going to matter. And we're actually at the point now where we can eat our very, very first portion of pumpkin. So we're going to do that here in just a moment also. Yeah, that's still growing. So I'm just going to let that grow. I don't need food for a while at this point. So if we eat this, boom, well served. And you can see we kind of have these like gilded saturation pieces because we have nourishment, the nourishment effect. So we will not have to worry about eating again for like 3.5 minutes as is. And then after that, we're going to have like full saturation that has to run down. So very, very powerful food. And we're not going to be eating all that often as we move forward. And so you can see the buff just wore off, and now I have full saturation steel that I can kind of go through. So eating this food, I mean, you're going to have like full saturation for like 4 minutes before it even gets down to your full saturation. You can go a very, very long time between meals. We probably will end up getting a gluttony charm before too long. I don't think I have cocoa beans at the moment. I think that's the only reason that we haven't made one yet. Which you would think I would, because I live in sort of a jungly area. It's a tropical rainforest. However, cocoa beans don't really grow there. Nor do jungle trees. So that's the only reason that I have not gotten those yet. But that's okay, because this will be sufficient until we can get our hands on some cocoa beans. So, but yeah, so anyways, we are going to wrap up this episode here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already to stay updated with when new videos come out. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Normally, like I said, we don't normally cover agriculture on camera for like an entire episode like that for the most part. But Farmer's Delight does make it a little bit more mechanical to some degree. And also just the way we're setting up the farms and stuff like that. I felt like it would make a nice, fun, laid-back sort of episode focusing on plants for a change. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see you guys next time. Until then, as always, do take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys then.